We are now live, Mr. Lane Beene. Hello, this is Tommy Breedlove, the Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author of the book Legendary, a little shameless self-promotion. Talking today with my brother-in-arms, Mr. Lane Beene, a former F-16 U.S. Air Force fighter pilot for a long time, recently retired, and has now gone into the fields of real estate development and is crushing it there. And so Lane is a master at all things resilience, leadership, and mindset. He's been a great friend, a great mentor, and a great person to have during my time by my side during this COVID-19 crisis and all things that we're going through. And so Lane, I want to start us off by saying thank you for being here. And the first thing I'll ask you is this. During challenging times, I think when it comes to resilience, leadership, and mindset, that the hardest thing to lead is ourselves. So what have you done to help manage and lead yourself so that you can manage and lead your teams more effectively?
Well, Tommy, I wanted to first say how honored I am to speak with you this afternoon and also speak with your audience. I consider it such a privilege to share what I've learned with your audience to help them become more resilient, to help them be better leaders, whether that be in their family, their community, their business, or whatever enterprises they're following. When you ask me about resilience and you ask me about leadership, I think it starts with yourself. Like you mentioned, the hardest person to lead is yourself. And you have to really be aware of that. And if you're not, then you can quickly go off track. The answer to your question, quite simply, is this, is you have to have walls up and you have to be mentally ready every single day to face the challenges, face the frustrations, and face the events and obstacles that are part of everyday life. And that would be my recommendation. And that's what I try to arm myself up with, daily armor, so that I'm ready to take those challenges on in my family, in my business, in my society, in my community, because they're part of normal life and you can't avoid it.
I love that. And you talked about the armor, and the way we say this in my movement is we've got to build the emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual fortress. Is there some daily routines that you have that you implement in your life, whether it comes to spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, to prepare you each and every day to be a little bit better than you were yesterday?
I think you have to, Tommy. Your armor, your daily mental armor is like your daily physical nutrition. What I ate yesterday was helpful to me, and it's going to have some benefit today, but it wears off. Your mental preparations, what I did on the weekend to help me unwind or de-stress, helped me on Saturday and Sunday and Monday. But by Tuesday, it's worn off. And so you literally have to have, in my opinion, the continuous rebuilding and maintenance on your mental walls, because people are attacking the wall every single day. People are saying, Tom, you're no good. Why do you think you could do that? Why do you think you do a podcast, Lane? Why do you think I should give you money? They're attacking that wall and trying to break a hole in it. And once that hole begins, or the chip in the mortar or the bricks begin, you have to go repair it. If you don't repair it, just like your house, just like anything you own, breaks down. And so that daily process is whatever gives you that strength. For me, it's spiritual, reading the Bible. It's reading daily stoicisms. It's reading philosophy to help me identify where my chinks in the armor are, and then rebuilding those. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be Dwight Eisenhower, you could be Douglas MacArthur, but you're going to get attacked, and you have to have that. And if you don't have it, then your walls are going to get broken down, and the enemy's going to be inside the gate.
Absolutely love that. And things that I've implemented in my practice every single day, like you said, is your daily readings. prayer, gratitude practices, meditation, physical exercise. It's all we spend time investing and building our fortresses so that we can go serve our communities better. For those of you just joining us live on Facebook, talking to my man, Lane Beene, former F-16 fighter pilot and real estate developer extraordinaire, about all things mindset, resilience, and leadership. He certainly is a master on all those fronts. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to kind of go back and forth. You said something that I found very profound. And for you, you're in the business of real estate development. And for those of you who don't know, that requires a significant amount of trust, because real estate development, especially large scale, doesn't come without significant monetary investment, oversight, trust. And there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And so for you as a leader, one of your main goals, whether it's stated or unstated, is to build that trust, to build that accountability, and to build that relationship so that you can go out and fundraise and ask people to believe in you and the project, and ultimately the return on investment on both you and the project. And so tell me some of those ways that you build trust with your investors, your team, the people who actually are on the development side, and within your family.
I mean, that is a fantastic question. And it is a fantastic question today, because the way I did it and the way Tommy Breedlove did it in 2019, face to face, cheek to cheek, coffee mug to coffee mug, may be different in 2020 because of COVID-19 and what we're doing right now. Tommy, we may have done this in 2019 over, a restaurant meal, but 2020 may mean we're doing it over Zoom, right? But I don't necessarily think that the principles change, the medium will change. And so let me answer your question with how I did it, and then what changes that would imply. So there's really and I've thought a lot about this, because people want to work with people they trust, respect, and like. If you can satisfy those three things, you're going to be successful no matter what line of work you're in. Trust, respect, and like. So let's talk about the respect part and trust, because that's what you asked me about. The things I'm tactically doing to implement those steps are three things. One is I try to add value. And in my real estate business, that's an education series where I've got topics that are real estate and specific to what we're talking about, and I try to educate you on. So Tommy, for example, I try to educate you on what is the impact of this stimulus package, and there's been so much money and so much emphasis on this. What's going to be the impact on real estate investing? And that topic, even though you may understand it completely, is a good discussion point. I try to add value. I try to add education and training so that you better understand what that'll be. So number one is I try to add value, and I don't ask for any value. This is free. It's what I try to do. The second thing is I associate with experts. That it gives me trust. I'm associating with Tommy Breedlove, who is an expert in coaching, an expert in life development, life skills, and training. So that gives me a sense of credibility, a sense of trust, because Tommy and I, like Tommy said, have been friends for a long time. And you don't develop a friend relationship or an association if you're not trustworthy. And then the last thing I do is I try to get personal referrals. So if I've added benefit to you, then hey, if you don't mind, would you mind to, for 30 seconds, just say, I've known Lane for 5 years. And during that 5 years, I consider him very credible in these fields. And I consider him a good friend with high character and high value. Because when you and Heather go to a different area or community and you want to go to a restaurant, what do? You look on Yelp and you look for the 5-star restaurant. That's what I'm asking for. Hey, Tommy, or my friend or my client or my customer, do you mind if I've done a good job for you? Do you mind to say 30 seconds? Hey, Lane did a nice job for me. He recommended this product, he recommended this service, and it worked out really well, and I appreciate that fact. So those are the three things, Tommy, that I tactically try to do to build trust. I did that beforehand if you and I were drinking coffee at Starbucks, but now I've got to do that virtually. And we're doing it through things like this and through some of the technology platforms like LinkedIn, referrals, and other things.
Love that answer. Educate, expertise. And not only does Lane develop his expertise, but he surrounds himself with experts. And that only provides network connections, i.e., providing value. And you and I both know, Lane, that our net worth in business is our network. So not only does he give people network introductions that can make them better professionally, personally, and in business, he also asks for them. And I think that's something we don't do. I think too many times on the networking side, we look to see what we can get out of the other person or ask them that, can I pick your brain without bringing some value to the table? And I really think that's an amateur move. I think the first move is figure out how you can help them and serve them. And we all have our currencies that we can help our network. And then once you establish that trust, then we can ask for help as that quid pro quo comes up. So that's very, very well said. You alluded to it in this conversation as we're recording this, and I got Lane Beene, my F-16 and real estate development expert here, and he was a former fighter pilot and now is in real estate development. And this is a very strange and difficult time, especially for all of us. I mean, we're all mourning our way of life. There's a lot of uncertainty out there for guys like you and I. We like to feel like we're in control, and we don't know when or if this thing's going to end and what life's going to look like on the other side. And so something that you talk about within, your son, your daughter, your wife, your community, your church, your business, formerly in the Air Force, is resilience. And talk about resilience and how important that is. And what does resilience mean to you, especially during these very unusual times that not many people, none of us actually have ever been through? So what does resilience mean to you, and how do you apply that into your life?
Tommy, that's a fantastic question that I think a lot of people are challenged by, because there is a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of doubt because of the health crisis that we're going through and because of the challenges that it makes in our economy. But there's a passage in the Bible that I just read today, man. I'm so glad you brought this up. It says, the spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear? Think about that. So if I have the right spirit mentally, I can sustain anything. And that's been proven over and over and over again with people in physical situations that are just indescribable, but their spirit carries them through. I think of some of the prisoners of war in Vietnam and the things they went through and struggled through year after year, 8 years, and they endured it. And then the other portion is a wounded spirit who can bear. So if your spirit and your attitude is broken, then you're going to encompass physical sickness and other things, and it's just going to overcome you. And you see sometimes that resiliency, like you mentioned, doesn't carry us through. So you asked me, what resiliency things and what is it important that you do? And I believe that it's important that you have that daily routine. I believe that it's important that you recognize, and this is what I admire so much about you, Tommy, is you have that mental fortitude. You have that compass, if you will. You have that vision of long game, so that daily struggles and daily challenges that you encounter in your relationships, professional, family, mom and dad, brothers and sisters, in-laws, we all got that, right? Those are going to be here today, and they'll be here tomorrow, and they'll be here next week. You can't get them. It's called life, right? But you've got to have a clear vision, okay, of what's in front of you, so that when those challenges bump you off track, you've got the vision. This is the analogy I would tell you from my F-16 experience in flying, is when you take off and you fly to point A to point B, you have a destination in mind. And so you set a course. If I live in Fort Worth, Texas, North Texas, and if I was to fly to your house, Tommy, in Atlanta, my heading would be eastbound. The magnetic number is 090 for east, and that's my aviation speak, right? So your aviators or pilots or navigators out there will understand that discussion. So let's say I took a course to Tommy's house and I said, hey, my course to get to Tommy's house is 090. If I got off on a heading of 2 degrees difference, 088, and I flew that heading for the same amount of time, do you know what? I wouldn't arrive at your house, Tommy. I would be off course by the time I intended to get to your destination, right? But I'd be pretty close because only 2 degrees off is a small amount. But when you talk about resiliency and you talk about business ethics and you talk about character, oftentimes we make an excuse. I'm so close. I'm doing it almost right. I'm only 2 degrees off. But guess what? You're 2 degrees off. And over a period of time, that small inaccuracy or the small acceptance of, hey, I'm doing it good enough, gets you a long way off. And so when you talk about resiliency and ethics and business and doing the right thing and playing a long ball game and having that vision for, hey, today I got a little knocked off course, right? But tomorrow I'm going to make a correction. I think it's imperative that you understand where I'm going. You understand where you want to end up, not on April 28th, which is tomorrow, but I want to end up at the end of my life, and I want to look back and say, I did the very best I could. And I arrived at my destination with ethics, my head held high, and my heart filled with love.
I love that. That is fantastic. Epic answer as always. Talking with my man, Lane Beene, former F-16 fighter pilot and real estate developer extraordinaire. He really is a mindset, resilience, and leadership expert. Something that really helps me too, it's not just the daily routines. It's not just the mindset. It's not just the daily work. To me, it's about community, tribe, and who we surround ourselves with. And I think we talk about that, but I think it needs to be talked about more and more these days. We have a fellow mentor and friend of ours, and just so everyone knows, Lane Beene and I are both in a mastermind called Iron Sharpens Iron. And it really is an amazing group for accountability, love, trust, and helping us be better men in all phases of our life. But Aaron Walker, the great leader of that, talks about how isolation is the enemy to excellence. And I absolutely think that's right. And sometimes no matter how hard we work or strive, those little voices get into our head and say, can I do this? Am I good enough? What if they figure out I don't know what I'm going to do or what I am doing? But tribes like that, friends like that, networks like that, who hold you accountable and kick you in the face when you breach your integrity, or who pick you up, love you, support you, and say, I got you, brother. I think it's one of the most invaluable things. And I know it's cliche, but there's a reason people call them cliches because they're true, is that we are the 5 people who we spend the most time with. And I think that has been one of the most life-changing things in my life. So talk about, and I know I spent time, I was actually at Lane Beene's retirement party and saw him and his F-16 fighter pilot buddies and all their support team and staff. And it was a celebration, but it was also awe-inspiring to see the brotherhood and the bonding and the connection that you guys had. Talk about the importance of community, your network, and who we surround ourselves with. And in your case, in the former life, it was life and death and the training that went with it. And in your new case, it's about trust, respect, honor, integrity, but also helping us be a little bit better and holding us our feet to the fire and accountability. Talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. I agree completely with your analogy there that you assimilate and you become like the people that you hang around with. And if you want to be a person that's in good physical fitness, and you hang around people that don't model that characteristic, then it's going to be unlikely. If you want to hang around people with high ethical character, but you don't hang around people that model that behavior, it's going to be difficult for you. But let me tell you this one story, Tommy. It's a little hard for me to say, but it's one of the 3 or 4 stories that has an indelible mark on my life, and I'll never forget it. And it talks about the value of teamwork. When I was going to the Air Force Academy, which is where I went to college, I was a member of the football team. And my junior year, we were pretty good. We played Notre Dame. We were 5-0, and we played Notre Dame that year in 1989. Notre Dame was a national champion, so they were fantastic. Lou Holtz, Rocket Ishmael, a variety of great players that played in the NFL. We played them at the Colorado Springs Stadium, and we played them really close. They beat us, but we really played well, and it was a great honor for us to play so well. We lost 5-1. The next week, we went to Texas Christian University here in Fort Worth, my hometown, thinking that, hey, TCU must have seen how well we played against Notre Dame, and they might as well just concede the loss before we even show up. Well, guess what? They didn't. They were ready to play, and we weren't. We got crushed. The Monday morning of practice, our coach, a guy named Bruce Johnson, was the incarnation of the devil himself, and he killed us that day. Running, grass drills, everything. It was the worst physical conditioning day I've ever had in my whole life. And this was the day after our poor performance against TCU. So it was horrible. Put it this way, it was so bad, we were on the practice field, and the manager came down and he said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but Bruce, we called him BJ. He goes, BJ just told us, no matter what, don't give him any water. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm so scared. We ran nonstop for about an hour and a half, and it was horrible, right? At the end of this time, 2 players had already passed out on the ground, did not wake up, I don't know if they got up, I don't know, but it was move the drill. And that was happening. And so to make a long story short, here's the point of this story, is we had been exercising nonstop at about 80% of full capacity, maybe 85. So you can imagine the level of fatigue we already had for almost an hour. We were running up a hill in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Most people don't live in Colorado. I don't know what your audience consists of, but the hills in Georgia and the hills in Colorado, it's not the same idea, right? I mean, a hill in Georgia is like this. A hill in Texas is like this. A hill in Colorado is like this, which you well know because I saw the pictures of you in Pikes Peak, right? And you've also been in Yellowstone. It's straight up, right? And I remember running up this hill, and I was thinking to myself, I was so in a pity party. I'd been working out for an hour or more at 80% capacity, and I'm not embellishing that fatigue level to the point where I've never been that fatigued before. And I remember running up this hill, and the hill is about 50 yards. So it's a sprint uphill, if you can imagine that. We're on the 7th or 8th sprint. Sprint the hill, run down, sprint the hill, run down, sprint the hill, run down, sprint the hill, run down 7 times. At the 7th time, my mindset is literally time to give up. There's been 3 other players that have all laying on the ground right now, and they're being treated by the medical staff. Don't know what their status is. Can't ask, can't even look over there. And I'm thinking, okay, Lane, time for me to lay down, right? Time for me to lay down. I've given it all. You can't really go past this point. My mental resilience said, I'm at the end of it. I've given the best I can. I can't do anymore. And so this is where this point of the story comes in, and this is what I want to emphasize. Is I was running up that hill on the 7th or 8th iteration of this, and I looked in front of me, and there were about 7 or 8 players that were in this event because there were only 11 of us. The defensive team which is what I was on. And one of my friends who I'd known for 4 years was running right beside me, and he was about 2 feet in front of me. We were 55 yards into a 75-yard uphill run on a hill. And I was thinking the whole time, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. I just can't go anymore. Everybody's passed out already. I looked at him. He was 2 feet in front of me. And this is the thought that came to my mind. I said, you know what? If I quit right now, I'm going to let him down because he's counting on me to support him. And I'm counting on him. He's been there every step of every exercise for not only this workout, but for the last 3 years. I thought about that for a second, and that thought crossed my mind And I knew immediately that there was no way I was ever going to quit. And if they had to drag me off that field that day, that's what they would have had to do. Because if I would have quit, it would have been easier for him to quit. And then the other 7 or 8 players that were still had the ability would have been easier for them to quit. When I got to the top of that hill, I wasn't any less fatigued than when I started, but mentally, I was ready. If I needed to run another 100, I wasn't going to quit. Not because I was in any better physical condition, but because I realized that people were counting on me and I couldn't let them down. I don't know if that's a very good answer to your story, Tommy, but I will never forget the importance of teamwork and what I learned from that event.
So that was epically powerful from A to Z. And so what I always heard is making it about your fellow man, your fellow teammate, something bigger than yourself. And that could even be equated in your why or purpose. And just an epic way of closing out this interview. I do have one more question for you. And so we're talking to Lane Beene, former retired F-16 fighter pilot and real estate developer, a master in all things leadership, resilience, and you just blew me away with that question. Mindset, leadership, and resilience. The answer to that question. Something I'm going to equate that into my life real quick is something, you know, I'm in the coaching, mastermind, and public speaking business. And we took a 60% top line hit almost overnight when they canceled all the events around the country and the planet, and rightfully so. And I could have gone and stuck my head in the sand or gone in a closet and cry. And I'm not going to say I didn't think about doing either one of those, but I made it about my team. I made it about the men and women we serve, and I made it about the movement, the why, our purpose, our calling. And I think if we get ourselves out of the way and make it about our why, make it about God, make it about the people we serve, both internally and externally, I think everything kind of takes care of itself, because that's the reason. And that's what you did when you were running up that hill in a much more extreme situation than I'm going through right now. So my final question to you, brother, is it's a 2-part question. Is one, if you were going to leave one tip of something that was either bestowed on you or a mantra or inspiration or motivation that you live by each and every day, I would love for you to share that with the audience. And second thing, as we go, I'd like to hear something that you're looking forward to over the next month or 2 months.
Yeah, I think the answer to your first question, Tommy, is I think you have to, especially in today's challenging time, in the last 8 weeks, you've mentioned you've had a revenue decline and you've had just some challenges with stay at home. I mean, you've probably been at home with Heather more now than ever, and I've been home with Dana more now than ever, and that's a challenge. And certainly there's some challenges in relationships and business. And, you know, if you look at minute by minute, it's so easy to get frustrated. It's so easy to lose your patience and your grace and your poise, and to get frustrated and to act out. But if you can keep the long game in sight and realize this will pass, it's a challenge, it's challenging everyone. And people during these challenging times need leadership. They need guys like Tommy Breedlove. They need guys like Lane Beene. They need guys like are listening in your audience today to say, guess what? I got this. Guess what? I understand it's difficult. I understand you're challenged, but let's keep our eyes on where we want to go. And one day we'll look back and this will be our finest moment, because we have acted with ethics, we've acted with integrity, and looking back, I'm very proud of the fact that we were poised and we showed grace and we showed joy. In fact, in spite of the fact that our business wasn't doing very well, and there were a couple of days where I didn't know if it would make it to the next day, but we kept a long ball. We played long game. We kept our ethics. And I think that's the thing that I would try to remind myself of every day, and I try to remind other people as well. This challenge will pass. We are all facing difficult times. The world, our states, our communities, our families, and our businesses need that solid leader. And that leader is solid and confident because they see the game, they see the destination, and they know it's not going to be Tuesday or Wednesday that they will arrive. It's going to be years from now, decades from now. And they hold their sights on that and they move forward and they advance. So that would be my answer to your question, Tommy. And then what would I advise them to do is just be faithful. Realize while we're here, keep your head held high and your heart filled with love. Realize this will pass and show grace and poise. And you'll look back with this as a point of pride and a point of gratitude that, hey, we made it through some tough times and now we're a lot stronger.
So what are you looking forward to, my brother?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tommy. I'm so excited about this. Not that what's happened. Of course, I love our country. I want our country to be a world leader. I think it will be, and I think it always has been. But in business, right, the trends in my business, Tommy, real estate investing, in your business, life coaching, advising, and other things that you're working on, to include entrepreneurial things, changes in business happen in very small increments over a long period of time. So what we find ourselves today probably would have happened, like Zoom, for example, or supply chain distribution. Or what has it been, 8 weeks since you and Heather have been to a restaurant, but you've probably had dine out several times, right? So those changes were incrementally moving us toward what we would have been in 10 years from now. But this COVID-19 has taken the trends that were happening over the next 5 to 10 years, and they've avalanched the entire national economy in 5 days. So 5 years of trends were avalanched on us in 5 days, right? Supply chain distribution, wellness concept, contactless society, work from home, education from home, medicine from home. I could go on and on and on about the trends that have been avalanched on us, right? So the people with vision like yourself, Tommy, I hope like I am, or maybe your audience, regardless of the industry, right, have been avalanched. It's the nimble entrepreneurs like Tommy Breedlove, I hope like Lane Beene, that have the vision to dig out quickly and to make the changes necessary that would have occurred 5 years from now, that happened in 5 days, and that we're nimble enough to make an adjustment. Like you mentioned, you know, Tommy, you're going to go and speak in front of hundreds and thousands of audiences, a best-selling author. Okay, I just recently read this book. I highly recommend it for people who aren't knowledgeable about that. But this book is basically saying, hey, you need to come hire this guy, right? And let him come talk to you. But guess what, Tommy? Some of that will return, but some of it will not return. And so what I'm excited about is challenging you and challenging me to see how the market's changed and then be nimble enough to lead, right? Because there's a lot of people, if you can imagine June 6, 1944, on White Dog Beach in Normandy, imagine the challenges that those soldiers faced. Many of the soldiers were laying down, I gotta wait until it clears, until there's a safe area before I can move forward. But thank God the Rangers didn't, and they said, Rangers lead the way. And they said, hey, if you wanna live and you wanna advance, get up and let's run forward. It's still risky, right? It's still dangerous, okay? But it's dangerous for everyone, right? So what am I excited about? I'm excited that this unfortunate series of health events has put our economy in jeopardy, and it's going to put some of them out of business. And I'm very disappointed with that. But I'm excited about the fact that there's some changes that I believe in the next couple of months are going to allow leaders like Tommy Breedlove and Lane Beene and many, probably the majority of your audience, to move forward and advance in 12 months what they would have taken a decade to advance. This is the time millionaires are made. This is the time net worth. This is the time influence is required, because you're looking for leaders. Most people are looking just to triage what they have. I'm not. I'm triaging what doesn't work, and I'm moving forward with agility and nimbleness so that I'm now a thought leader. I wouldn't have been able to do that for a decade. Now, in the next 10 months, instead of 10 years, they're going to look at Tommy Breedlove and say, wow, that guy has it figured out. He's the Uber. And the taxi cab drivers are like, that guy will never make it. And that's what they said about Uber. That's what they're going to say about Tommy Breedlove in 10 months from now, instead of 10 years. That's what they're going to say about Lane Beene in 10 months from now. Gosh, he really had vision. He really was able to take advantage of this, right? That would have been a decade from now. And now it's going to be in 10 months from now. That's what I'm excited about.
Wow, what a great answer. And you've been listening to Lane Beene, former F-16 fighter pilot, current real estate developer. And he just threw down some wisdom on all things mindset, leadership, and resilience. I'm so thankful you're here, my brother. He's a brother in arms. If I had to sum that up, I would say whether you see this as an opportunity or as a casualty, it's totally up to you. I think Lane says he sees it as an opportunity, and he's going to keep his mind open and his focus laser so that he can see the learnings, innovations, love, and goodness in this situation. Lane Beene, you're a brother in arms, man. Thank you so much. Got so much out of this, and thank you for the prop of the book. I really appreciate that too, brother. That was not planned. Love that, brother, and look forward to the next time we chat, which will be in the next week or so, man. So thank you again for everything, and I hope you have a great day, my brother.
Thank you, Tommy.